Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is the place where we dive into unbelievable true stories, moments of courage, and split-second decisions that change lives forever. Make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, and settle in, because today's story will take you from quiet turbulence to heart-pounding heroism at 30,000 feet. She boarded the plane like any other passenger. No entourage, no special treatment, no hint that in a few hours, every life on board would depend on her hands. She chose a window seat near the middle of the aircraft, slipped her headphones on, and leaned her head gently against the cool glass. To the people around her, she looked unremarkable. Calm, almost invisible, the kind of passenger flight attendants barely notice because she causes no trouble at all. She didn't speak much. She didn't ask for anything extra. She smiled politely when the man in the aisle seat stood up so she could pass. When the plane began taxiing, she buckled her seatbelt and closed her eyes, breathing slowly, like someone who had done this many times before. And she had. But not like this. The engines roared. The aircraft lifted off the runway smoothly, banking gently into the sky. The city below shrank into a grid of lights and shadows, and soon, only clouds filled the window. Everything felt routine, safe, predictable, until it wasn't. About 40 minutes into the flight, a strange vibration rippled through the cabin. At first, most passengers barely noticed. Turbulence happens all the time. A few people tightened their seatbelts. Someone laughed nervously. The flight attendants continued down the aisle, pushing carts, offering drinks. Then came the sound. A sharp, metallic bang echoed through the fuselage. The plane jolted violently to the left, hard enough to send a drink flying from a tray table and splashing across the floor. Oxygen masks did not drop, but the sudden silence that followed was worse. The engines no longer sounded smooth. One of them was coughing, uneven, like it was struggling to breathe. The cabin lights flickered. Somewhere near the front, a child began to cry. The captain's voice came over the intercom, steady but strained. He assured everyone there was a minor technical issue and that the crew was assessing the situation. He asked passengers to remain seated and calm. But she knew. She didn't panic. She didn't gasp. Her body reacted before her mind did, muscles tightening, posture changing. She removed her headphones and stared forward, eyes sharp, listening not just to the announcement but to the subtle sounds of the aircraft itself. The plane shuddered again. This time, harder. A flight attendant lost her balance and grabbed the seatback in front of her. The smell of something burned faintly in the air, barely noticeable, but unmistakable if you knew what to look for. And she did. She had spent years learning these sounds, these sensations. The difference between harmless turbulence and something far more dangerous. Her heart rate stayed controlled, but her thoughts accelerated. Something was seriously wrong. Another announcement crackled through the speakers, shorter this time. The captain's voice had changed. There was urgency now, clipped words, the careful tone of someone trying not to spread fear. They were experiencing engine failure. One engine. The plane could fly on one engine. Everyone knew that. Planes were designed for it. But what most people didn't realize was how quickly a situation could unravel when one failure led to another. The aircraft began to descend. Not dramatically, but noticeably. The angle of the floor felt wrong under her feet. Her stomach lifted, that unmistakable sensation of losing altitude. Around her, passengers exchanged anxious glances. Some whispered prayers. Others stared straight ahead, frozen. Then came the moment that changed everything. The intercom chimed again, but this time, there was no calm explanation. No reassurance. Just confusion. The first officer's voice broke through, overlapping with the captain's, as if they were speaking at the same time. There was a pause. A long, terrifying pause. And then silence. No engine roar. No steady hum. Just the wind rushing past the fuselage, louder than it should have been. The plane was gliding. People screamed. Someone shouted, asking what was happening. A woman sobbed uncontrollably. Bags fell from overhead compartments as the aircraft dipped sharply. The nose tilted downward, and gravity pressed everyone into their seats. The flight attendants rushed to their jump seats, faces pale, eyes wide. That was when she stood up. At first, no one noticed. Panic draws attention inward, but as she moved into the aisle, steady and focused, a few heads turned. A man reached out instinctively, as if to stop her. "Ma'am, you need to sit down," he said, his voice shaking. She looked at him, calm but firm. "I need to get to the cockpit." The words sounded strange in the chaos, almost unreal. Who says that? Who thinks they can help in a moment like this? A flight attendant hurried toward her, fear written all over her face. You can't go forward, she said. Please, for your safety. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn identification card. I'm a pilot, she said. I need to help them. The flight attendant froze. Behind the cockpit door, alarms were blaring. Warning lights flashed red and amber. The captain struggled with the controls, sweat pouring down his face. The first officer frantically ran through emergency checklists, hands shaking as system after system failed. They had lost more than an engine. They were losing control. The plane had suffered a cascading systems failure. Instruments were giving conflicting readings. The autopilot had disengaged. Hydraulics were compromised. They were running out of altitude and out of time. When the cockpit door opened, the captain barely looked up. He was too busy fighting the aircraft, trying to keep it level. She's a pilot, the flight attendant shouted over the noise. That got his attention. He turned, eyes bloodshot, desperate. What do you fly? He demanded. She stepped forward, gripping the back of the co-pilot's seat to steady herself as the plane lurched again. This, she said. There was no hesitation, no ego, just necessity. The captain made a split-second decision that went against every normal protocol, every rule drilled into him from day one. He moved aside. She slid into the co-pilot's seat like she had done it 1,000 times before. Her hands wrapped around the controls, familiar, grounding. The chaos in the cockpit faded into background noise as her focus narrowed. Aviate, navigate, communicate. She took a breath. The instruments were unreliable, so she trusted feel and instinct. The pressure in the controls. The sound of the airflow. The angle of descent. She adjusted the pitch gently, coaxing the plane into a more stable glide. Give me altitude, she said calmly. We're at 12,000 and dropping, the first officer replied. Nearest runway. Too far. She scanned the terrain below through the windshield. Fields. Roads. A river winding like a dark ribbon through the landscape. Clouds parted just enough to reveal patches of land. No runway. But maybe something else. She spotted it then. A long, straight stretch cutting through the countryside. Not ideal. Not safe. But possible. A highway. Can we reach that? She asked. The captain followed her gaze, calculating. Barely. Then that's where we're going. In the cabin, passengers felt the plane level out slightly. The screaming softened into tense silence. People clutched armrests, held hands with strangers, whispered goodbyes into phones with no signal. No one knew a quiet passenger had just taken control of their fate. She worked the controls with precision, compensating for the damaged systems, adjusting for wind shear and uneven lift. Every second mattered. Every small correction could mean the difference between a survivable landing and catastrophe. Flaps, she said. Flaps responding, the first officer confirmed. The highway grew larger in the windshield. Cars were pulling over, drivers staring in disbelief as a commercial aircraft descended toward them. She lined up the approach, heart pounding now but mind crystal clear. Training and experience guided her hands. Fear had no room here. Brace for landing, the captain announced over the intercom, his voice trembling but strong. Inside the cabin, people screamed again, but this time it was different. This time, there was hope tangled with terror. The plane touched down hard. Metal screamed against asphalt. The landing gear buckled but held long enough. Sparks flew as a wingtip scraped dangerously close to the ground. The aircraft skidded, shuddered, threatened to tear itself apart. She fought the controls, keeping it straight, slowing it down, praying the road stayed clear. And then, finally, impossibly, it stopped. Silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then applause erupted. Screams turned into sobs. People hugged strangers, laughed hysterically, dropped to their knees in the aisle. In the cockpit, she slumped back in her seat, exhaustion crashing over her all at once. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was fading. Emergency crews swarmed the aircraft minutes later. Firefighters, police, medics. News helicopters circled overhead. She left the plane quietly, slipping out with the other passengers. No speeches, no spotlight, just another face in the crowd. But the story didn't stay quiet. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Headlines called her a hero, a miracle, a guardian angel at 30,000 feet. Reporters dug into her past, discovering years of experience, thousands of flight hours, a career built on discipline and calm under pressure. When asked why she acted, she gave a simple answer. Someone had to. And that's the part that stays with you. Heroism doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it sits quietly by a window, wearing headphones, waiting for a moment it hopes will never come. But when it does, when everything fails and fear takes over, sometimes the right person is already on board. If this story moved you, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who needs a reminder that courage can come from the most unexpected places. Subscribe to Soul Car for more incredible stories like this, and let us know in the comments what you would have done in that situation. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, you never know who might be sitting next to you. Airplane.